Hi there, thanks for joining me. In this video, we're going to take a look at the new features in Corel Painter X3. X3 is the upgrade from 12, and it has a lot of really cool new features and improvements. I'm just going to outline a few of them really quick. First is the stroke preview. When you go to your brush selector now, at the bottom of the brush selector, you get all of these previews of the different brushes, so you don't have to go through them one by one and test out what they do. You can just kind of see in real time. So that's a really nice improvement. You can also access some quick controls for each brush type and each medium type through this advanced brush controls dialog. It basically condenses down the millions of different combinations of brush parameters to the ones that will work specifically for this kind of brush. Normally you could go to brush control panels and go to general and you'd get all these controls, but most of them don't have anything to do with oils. Like digital watercolor, these controls won't do anything to this brush. So what this does is it basically just takes the best features or the most frequently used features and makes them more accessible quickly, and you can kind of just pop it in and out there, which I think is really handy. So that's a cool feature. It makes things a lot easier to use. There is also a new feature called stroke jitter. So normally when you paint with no jitter, you just kind of get a straight brush, but if you add jitter, you'll see in the stroke preview that it kind of changes up the brush. If I use something like watercolor, that might make it more apparent here. If I go to stroke jitter and add some jitter, when I paint with it now with a color we can see, you can see it kind of throws the straight line off and kind of spreads it out and just kind of scatters it. You can use more or less depending on how you want to paint, but it kind of just makes your strokes look more natural. That's a really cool feature. It works really good with the watercolors especially. There are some built-in jitter brushes that you can get to. Another thing to mention, there is a brush search feature now, so you can now search for specific brushes, so that could be really helpful for you. There are a few different improvements to the interface. One thing I noticed, it's a lot easier to save brushes now. If you wanted to just kind of save a brush to a palette, you can just drag it right here while it's selected by holding down Shift and dragging, and you'll get this brush that's selected here. So now it's really easy to make your own custom palettes. You can take any brush here and really easily just hold Shift and drag it into the palette, and you can make any kind of collection of brushes you want. It's really easy to do. And there you go. I'll post a link in the description of this video to another video I have that describes how to customize these palettes in more detail. So I'll just close this for now. We don't need it there, and I'm going to just clear out some of this stuff. So the next thing, one of the really cool features is perspective guides. So we can select the perspective guides tool here and then turn on perspective guides with this off-on switch, and we'll get these guides. You might be seeing something differently, so let's just change the preset to 1 point standard horizon. And I'm going to change my background color to white, just so it looks more like yours will. Go back to our perspective tool here, and if you have trouble seeing these lines, you can turn this line opacity up on these to make the lines easier to see. So what this tool does is it puts a perspective here in your painting, and you can use this guide here to make more accurate drawings in perspective. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to select black, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the same brush I have here, make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to start painting. And you'll see that no matter whether I paint left or right, my brush stroke is constrained to these lines. So this feature is constraining my brush strokes to straight lines that radiate out from this perspective point, which could be really good and really helpful if I were drawing architecture or different things, buildings. This could be a road. I could have some train tracks. I can see how this would work really good for sketching. I'm not sure that I really like this constraining feature so much, so I prefer to turn it off, and you can toggle it off by clicking this little option here, and now you can just draw freehand however you want. It's not going to get constrained. So how I would use this is I would probably make these a little bit fainter so they're not so in my face. And then I would go in and put in some different things freehand, and then just make sure that I stay within these guides and kind of have some idea of perspective. I mean, you could draw these guides yourself too. If you're using an earlier version of Painter, all you really have to do, especially in 12, is just use the symmetry painting tool and just paint some lines here like this. There are more complex perspectives. I'll probably make a video following up on this, getting into the perspective painting tool in more detail, but we'll just kind of glance at it for a second here. The next thing we'll look at is group transform, and group transform is a really handy feature. Just going to turn this off. I like to work with a lot of layers, so normally I would have different objects. We'll have like a stick figure here, and I would have something like a head layer and a body layer and arms and legs. And so I'd have something that looked, well, not so crude as I'm about to paint it, but something like this, where we have a multi-layered figure here. Do some arms. It's kind of like a zombie or something, or a voodoo doll. But so I'd have this multi-layered character here, and I could move it around and that was fine if I wanted to reposition it, but if I ever wanted to rotate it or scale it, I couldn't rotate this whole group together. I could only rotate one part at a time. So what I would have to do is I'd have to save this as a PSD and then open it in Photoshop and then rotate it and then bring it back into Painter. So now that Painter X3 supports transformations of groups, it's really easy to just transform this as a group. So I can take the free transformation tool here, and I can scale it and rotate it, do anything I want to do. So that's pretty handy. The last thing that we'll look at is the reference image feature, which is a really cool feature as well. It's very handy. Just going to trash the stick figure here. And to get to the reference image feature, we go to the window menu, and it is under reference image here. So what this is this little image window where you can place an image and it'll stay on top of your window here while you're painting. And in earlier versions of Painter, you could open two images at the same time, one in each window, or you could place an image within your canvas, but in either case, it would kind of take up space that you could be using to paint and kind of obscure your image. So this allows you just to have a little discrete image here that you can load. And I'll just take something from these sample pictures that come on my computer, and you can see now I've got a reference image here, and I can use it to do a painting if I wanted to of that image. So that's a really handy feature. So that's it for what I'm going to cover as far as the new features for Painter X3. Stay tuned for more videos where I'll go into more detail about some of these features. If you found this information helpful, take a second to click the like button and share this video on YouTube or on Facebook, and that'll make it easier for other digital artists out there to find this information. Thanks for watching.